there is a man who has been dead for nearly 2,000 years. He never posted a vision board. He never wrote a manifestation journal. He never once told the universe what he wanted. And yet, he built an inner life so powerful, so precise, so deliberately constructed, that even today, the words he wrote only for himself still change the direction of people's entire lives. That man was Marcus Aurelius, and what he understood about getting what you want out of life, most people will never discover. Until now. Welcome back to Wisdom of the Stoics. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you found this. Stay to the end. What we're about to explore together is not what you've been sold by the self-help industry. Today we're talking about manifestation, but not the version you've seen before. Not vision boards, not the law of attraction, not speaking things into existence as if the universe is a vending machine waiting for your order. We're talking about something older, something more demanding, and something that actually works. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they understood a principle that modern culture has almost completely abandoned, that the life you want is not summoned, it is constructed, brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day. Now here's what I want you to sit with before we begin, because this changes everything. The Stoics weren't against desire. They weren't against ambition. They weren't teaching people to want nothing. They were teaching people to want rightly, and then to pursue that want with such clarity, such discipline and such unshakable internal strength that failure, setbacks, and delay simply couldn't stop them. That is the Stoic version of manifestation. And today, I'm going to give you 9 rules drawn directly from their writings that, if you truly apply them, will begin to transform what your life produces. Not someday, not eventually. Starting from the moment this video ends, let's begin. Rule number 1, define what you actually want. Most people spend their entire lives pursuing things they never consciously chose. They chase the salary their parents admired. They want the relationship their friends validated. They work toward titles that look impressive in email signatures but feel hollow on a Tuesday night when the house is quiet. Marcus Aurelius opens the Meditations with an accounting, not of goals, not of ambitions, but of debts to the people who helped shape his character, his grandfather, his father, his teachers. What he's doing in those opening pages is something profound. He is examining the origins of his values. He is asking, where did this come from? Is this truly mine? Seneca is even more direct. In letter 1, he writes to his friend Lucilius with an urgency that feels almost desperate. Vindicata tibi, claim yourself for yourself. He's telling Lucilius, and through those letters, he's telling us that most of what we call wanting is actually borrowed wanting. It's desire absorbed from other people, from culture, from fear of being left behind. The first Stoic rule of manifestation, then, is not to visualize what you want. It is to interrogate it, ask yourself, and be ruthless about this. If no one could see the result, if no one would applaud the achievement, if your social media went dark forever tomorrow, would you still want this thing? If the answer is yes, you have found something real. If the answer wavers, if there's a moment of hesitation, before you say yes, that hesitation is telling you something crucial. Because here's what the Stoics understood that modern culture ignores. You cannot manifest someone else's life. You can only build your own. And the tragedy is that most people are spending enormous energy, enormous focus, enormous life, trying to build something they don't even truly want. Take out a journal tonight. Write at the top, what do I actually want and why? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Let the uncomfortable silence do its work. The Stoics called this prohairesis, the capacity to choose deliberately. It is the foundation on which everything else we discuss today is built. You cannot build a life on a foundation you haven't chosen. Rule number 2, control the controllable. Here is the question that will save you years of suffering. If you genuinely let it sink in, what is actually within your power? Epictetus, a man who spent his early life as a literal slave, built his entire philosophy around a single distinction. He called it the dichotomy of control. Some things are ephemin, up to us. Some things are auk ephen hemin, not up to us. And in the Enchiridion, he lists them without ambiguity. Up to us, our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, our inner life. Not up to us, our body, our reputation, our status, the actions of other people, the outcomes of events in the external world. Now, this is where most people stop reading and say, that's too passive. That's giving up. But they've misread Epictetus completely. He is not saying don't pursue outcomes. He is saying pursue them without making your peace of mind contingent on them. Think about what this means for manifestation. The person who says, I will only be happy when I get the job, the relationship, the house, the recognition, that person has handed the keys to their inner life to forces entirely outside their control. They have made their well-being dependent on luck, on other people's decisions, on timing. The Stoic doesn't do this. The Stoic says, I will prepare with everything I have. I will show up with full effort, full focus, full discipline. And then, whatever the result, I will not be destroyed by it. This is not weakness. This is the most powerful operating system a human being can install. Because here's the paradox, and I want you to really hear this. When you stop desperately needing a specific outcome, you become capable of pursuing it more powerfully. Desperation clouds judgment. Fear of failure contracts creativity. The anxiety of, I must get this, makes you worse at getting it. But the person who has genuinely released the outcome, who has made their peace with whatever comes, that person can act with the kind of calm, focused, fearless energy that actually produces great results. This is why Stoic philosophy is not passive. It is the opposite of passive. It is learning to be absolutely committed to the process and genuinely free from attachment to the result. Practice this today. Pick one thing you've been anxious about. Write 2 columns, what's in my control and what isn't. Then, and this is the hard part, consciously decide to put everything you have into column 1 and consciously release column 2. See what happens to your energy. Rule 3. Premeditatio malorum. Before I explain this rule, I want to ask you something. When was the last time something went wrong? Something you hadn't prepared for, and it knocked you completely off course. A plan that fell apart. A person who let you down. An opportunity that disappeared without warning. For most people, unexpected setbacks cause a kind of collapse. Not because the setback itself is insurmountable, but because the mind had never rehearsed it, had never walked through it, had assumed on some level that the path forward would be smooth. The Stoics considered this assumption dangerous. Their practice, and it was an active, daily practice, was called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Seneca describes it in letter 24. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. What this means in practice is this. Before any significant pursuit, the Stoic would deliberately visualize what could go wrong. Not obsessively, not anxiously, but calmly, clearly, as an act of preparation. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. In the Meditations, he writes reminders to himself, almost like coaching notes about what to expect from people, from circumstances, from his own impulses. He is essentially pre-gaming difficulty so that when it arrives, it feels familiar rather than catastrophic. And here's the thing, modern psychology has confirmed what the Stoics knew intuitively. People who mentally simulate obstacles before they occur are significantly better at overcoming them when they do occur. It's called defensive pessimism in psychology. The Stoics called it wisdom. But there's something even deeper here. Premeditatio malorum does something to your relationship with desire itself. When you have genuinely sat with the possibility of losing the thing you want, when you have looked at that outcome calmly and decided you can survive it, you free yourself from the tyranny of needing it. And paradoxically, as we discussed in Rule 2, that freedom makes you more powerful in pursuit of it. So here is your practice for Rule 3. Take the one thing you most want to manifest in your life right now. Then write down every realistic way it could fail. Every obstacle, every setback, every way the timing could be wrong or the people involved could disappoint. Don't do this to depress yourself. Do it to prepare yourself. Because the Stoic who has walked through the darkness in their mind is never blindsided by darkness in reality. We're 3 rules in. If what you're hearing is resonating with you, if this feels different from the usual content, I'd ask you to drop a comment below. Tell me where in the world you're watching from. It means more than you know to see this community growing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this would be a good moment. Now, let's keep going. Rule number 4, act without attachment. There is a concept in Eastern philosophy, Wu Wei, that describes action without force. Action that flows from genuine alignment rather than from anxious striving. The Stoics had their own version. Marcus Aurelius writes in Book 6 of the Meditations, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live. While you have it, while you still can, make yourself good." What he's describing is a quality of action that is fully present, fully committed, and completely free from the desperate need to see the result immediately. This rule is perhaps the most counterintuitive one we'll discuss today, because our culture tells us that caring deeply about outcomes is what produces them, that hunger drives results, that urgency is fuel. And there's a version of that which is true, but there's another version, the version most of us actually live in, where the attachment to outcomes quietly poisons the very actions that would produce them. The writer who is so desperate for the book to succeed that she can't access genuine creativity while writing it. The entrepreneur so terrified of the company failing that every decision is made from fear rather than vision. The person so anxious about whether the relationship will work that they cannot simply be present within it. Attachment distorts action. It introduces a kind of static into the signal of your effort. The Stoic practice here is what I would call full engagement with zero clinging. You give everything to the action itself. You bring your complete attention, your complete craft, your complete discipline to what is in front of you right now, and then you release it. You do not keep checking. You do not keep measuring. You do not keep asking, is it working yet? You act, and then you return to acting. Seneca puts it this way: the mind that is anxious about the future is miserable, not because the future doesn't matter, but because anxious anticipation of it is a tax on the present moment that produces nothing of value. The Stoics were, in the deepest sense, masters of presence, not because they were spiritual or mystical, but because they understood that the present moment is the only place where real work gets done. This week, practice this. Choose one important project, one pursuit, one relationship, and commit to showing up to it with full attention. Zero checking and zero scorekeeping for 7 days. Act, release, repeat. Watch what happens. Rule number 5. Become the person first. This is the rule that changes everything, and it's the one that's almost entirely absent from modern manifestation culture. Here is the question modern culture asks: what do I need to do to get what I want? Here is the question the Stoics asked: who do I need to become to deserve what I want? Do you feel the difference? The first question is transactional. It's looking for steps, hacks, shortcuts, ways to extract the outcome, without necessarily undergoing any internal transformation. The second question is existential. It asks you to look at the gap between who you are today and who the version of you would have to be to naturally inhabit the life you're describing. Marcus Aurelius, even as Emperor of Rome, arguably the most powerful man alive, never stopped working on his character. The Meditations is not a book of achievements. It is a book of private self-correction. Page after page of him examining where he fell short, where he reacted poorly, where he failed to live up to his own standards. He understood something that very few people understand. External outcomes are downstream of internal character. What you produce in the world is, over time, with enough consistency, a reflection of who you actually are on the inside. The person who is genuinely disciplined will, eventually, have a disciplined life. The person who is genuinely courageous will, eventually, have taken the actions that create an extraordinary life. The person who is genuinely honest will, eventually, have relationships built on real trust. And the reverse is also true. You cannot sustainably manifest a life that outpaces your character, not for long, because the gap between who you are and what you've built eventually closes, usually painfully. This is why lottery winners so often return to financial struggle. This is why people who get the relationship they wanted often destroy it. This is why promotions don't fix the person who hasn't done the inner work. The external arrived. The internal wasn't ready. Epictetus asks his students a searing question in the Discourses. What do you want to be? Because before you answer that, you need to understand that you already are becoming something. Right now, with every choice. You are not pausing life until your goals arrive. You are building your character right now. Every response to difficulty, every choice when no one is watching, every time you do or don't keep a promise to yourself. So the rule is this: before you ask, how do I get there? Ask, who do I need to be to live there naturally? And then start being that person. Today, in small ways, in private ways. This is the only form of manifestation that actually lasts. Rule number 6, amor fati, love what is. 2 words that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus all circled around, though it was Nietzsche who later gave them a name. Amor fati, love of fate. This is perhaps the most radical idea in Stoic philosophy, and it is also, I think, the most misunderstood. Amor fati does not mean passive acceptance. It does not mean pretending that painful things aren't painful. It does not mean performing gratitude you don't feel. It means something much harder and much more powerful. It means choosing, deliberately, consciously, to love not just what is pleasant in your life, but everything your life presents to you, including the difficulty, including the failure, including the loss. Marcus Aurelius writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Pause on that. What stands in the way becomes the way. He's not saying obstacles are secretly blessings in a hollow, motivational poster sense. He's saying something more precise, that the way you respond to obstacles is itself the work. That the obstacle is not a detour from your path. It is part of the path. Every entrepreneur who has built something real will tell you the pivots forced on them by failure were often the decisions that made the company work. Every person who has emerged stronger from loss will say, I would not choose to go through that again, but I cannot imagine becoming who I am without it. This is amor fati lived in real time. Seneca writes in his letters that a person who truly loves their fate is invulnerable, not because nothing bad happens to them, but because they have decided to extract value from everything that happens to them. The question is not, why is this happening to me? The Stoic question is, what is this making possible? What is this teaching me? How is this advancing me toward who I need to become? When you shift to that question, even in the middle of something genuinely hard, you will feel your energy shift. You stop being a victim of your circumstances. You become, as Marcus put it, the craftsman of your own character, using whatever material life provides. And the person who can love their fate, truly, not performatively, is the person who cannot be stopped, because they have removed failure as a category. Everything for them is either success or useful information. Rule number 7, the daily examination. Seneca describes a practice in his letters that he learned from his own teacher, a practice of ending each day with a form of self-examination. He writes, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." He would ask himself 3 questions, or rather, 3 variations of one question. Where did I fall short today? Where could I have been better? Where tomorrow can I do differently? This is not self-criticism. This is something the Stoics valued far more than self-criticism, self-knowledge. The difference matters enormously. Self-criticism says, I failed, I am weak, I am not enough. Self-knowledge says, this is where I actually am. Here is the gap between who I am and who I intend to be. Now, what do I do about it? One is a spiral. The other is a compass. Marcus Aurelius kept the Meditations as his version of this practice. Page after page of daily examination, not written for publication, not written for posterity, but written to hold himself accountable to his own values in private. And the key word there is private. We live in a culture that processes everything publicly. We announce intentions on social media. We perform accountability in front of audiences. We mistake the declaration for the deed. The Stoics went exactly the other direction. Their work was done in silence, in private, in the pages of a journal that in Marcus' case was never meant to be read by anyone. Because the work of becoming is not a performance, it is a practice. Here is what I want to offer you. Before you sleep tonight, spend 5 minutes, just 5, with a journal. Write down 3 things. 1. Where did I act in alignment with my values today? 2. Where did I not? 3. What is one specific thing I will do differently tomorrow? Do this every night for 30 days. I promise you, not as motivation, but as a genuine observation. The person you are at the end of those 30 days will be measurably, visibly different from the person you are today, because the daily examination is how the Stoics closed the gap between who they were and who they intended to be, one day at a time. Rule number 8, speak less, do more. Marcus Aurelius has a line in Book 3 of the Meditations that I think about constantly. He writes, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. 6 words in the Latin. 6 words that cut through centuries of noise. Be one. We are living in the most talkative era in human history. We have more platforms for expressing opinions, sharing intentions, announcing goals, and performing ambition than any civilization has ever had. And we are, statistically, measurably, not performing better as a result. The Stoics had a deep skepticism of words without action. Epictetus, in particular, was almost aggressive about this. He would ask students who came to him with grand philosophical ideas, show me, don't tell me. There's a concept in modern psychology called social reality. The idea that when you tell people about a goal, your brain partially experiences the satisfaction of achieving it. The announcement itself provides a dopamine hit, and that hit can actually reduce your motivation to do the hard work required. The Stoics didn't have dopamine as a concept, but they observed the same phenomenon. The person who talks most about their grand plans often does least. The person who says very little and simply works, that person often accomplishes most. Seneca writes, let your deeds speak even when you are silent. And there is a discipline required here that goes beyond just not posting about your goals on social media. It's a deeper discipline of the internal dialogue. How much time do you spend narrating your intentions to yourself? Telling yourself the story of what you're going to do, who you're going to become, how different things will be. That internal narration, when it replaces action, is just as dangerous as the external kind. The Stoic rule is simple: less talking, inside and out. More doing. Do the work in private. Let the results speak when they're ready. And there is something quietly powerful about this approach. There's a kind of dignity in it, a kind of self-respect that comes from being someone whose actions consistently outpace their announcements. Be that person. Rule number 9, memento mori. We arrive at the final rule, and I want to ask you something before I explain it. What would you do differently if you knew, genuinely knew, in your bones that your time here was finite, not in the abstract way you already know it, in the visceral, immediate, can't-look-away way that changes how a person moves through a day? The Stoics called this practice memento mori, remember that you will die. In ancient Rome, when a general returned from victory and rode through the streets, in triumph, at the height of his power, the crowds roaring, glory at its absolute peak, a slave would ride beside him in the chariot. And that slave's job was to whisper repeatedly into the general's ear, Respis poster, hominentius memento mori. Look behind you, remember that you are a man. Remember that you will die. This was not morbid. This was not Roman darkness. This was the most clarifying truth a human being can hold. Because memento mori does something that nothing else can do. It burns away what doesn't matter. When you truly hold the reality of your finitude, when you let it land, rather than keeping it at a comfortable, philosophical distance, something remarkable happens. The opinion of the person who doubted you, suddenly much smaller. The fear of starting, suddenly much less convincing. The excuse you've been living with for years, suddenly exposed for what it is. Marcus Aurelius returns to this theme again and again throughout the Meditations, not with despair but with urgency, a clean, clarifying urgency. In Book 4, he writes, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." In Book 6, how many a Chrysippus, how many a Socrates, how many an Epictetus have time already swallowed up? Even the greatest philosophers, even the greatest emperors, time takes them all. And Marcus, emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful humans who ever lived, uses this truth not to despair, but to act, now today, without delay, because delay is the great thief, not failure, not circumstance, not other people. Delay, the life unlived because you were waiting for the right time, the conversation never had because you assumed there would be another chance, the version of yourself never fully inhabited because you kept it as a future project. Memento mori is the Stoic antidote to delay. It is the reminder that the time you are spending right now, this day, this hour, this moment, is not a rehearsal. It is not a prologue. It is the thing itself. Marcus Aurelius asks in the Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But there is a prerequisite to realizing it. You have to care enough to look up from the distractions. You have to care enough to take your life seriously. And memento mori is what makes you care. Not with fear, with love, with reverence, with an almost fierce tenderness for the time you have been given. So here is your final practice from today. Tonight before you sleep, hold in your mind, gently, without drama, the simple truth that this day will not come again, that the people in your life are finite, that you are finite, that the gap between who you are and who you want to be will not close on its own. And then ask yourself the only question that matters. What will I do with tomorrow? 9 rules. Let me bring them back together. Because they are not separate. They are one coherent way of living. Rule 1. Define what you actually want, not what was handed to you. Rule 2. Pour everything into what is in your control. Release the rest. Rule 3. Anticipate difficulty. Let the obstacle prepare you. Rule 4. Act fully. Cling to nothing. Rule 5. Become the person first. The life follows. Rule 6. Love your fate, all of it. Rule 7. Examine yourself daily. Close the gap. Rule 8. Say less, do more. Rule 9. Remember that you will die, and let that truth make you alive. The Stoics were not distant philosophers arguing in marble halls. They were people, flawed, complicated, struggling, striving, who found a way to live with uncommon clarity and uncommon purpose in the middle of an uncertain world. Marcus Aurelius led Rome through plague and war. Seneca faced exile and eventually execution. Epictetus was born into slavery, and yet their writings breathe with something that most comfortable, privileged modern people lack, a deep, unshakable sense of purpose. Not because fate was kind to them, but because they had decided, clearly, deliberately, repeatedly, what kind of people they were going to be. That decision is available to you, today, in this moment. It doesn't require the right circumstances. It doesn't require waiting until things are easier or you feel more ready. It requires only this, the choice to begin. If this video gave you something, if even one of these rules landed differently for you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. These ideas have survived 2,000 years because people passed them on. Be part of that chain. Subscribe to Wisdom of the Stoics. Leave a comment below. Tell me which of the 9 rules hit you hardest. Tell me which one you're going to practice first. And until next time, go forward with clarity. Go forward with courage. Go forward with the quiet, unshakable certainty that the life you want is being built right now, in the choices you make when no one is watching. Memento mori, and because of it, truly live.